Hey everybody, I'm Josh Tucker. This is co-host John Roberts. John, not too much exciting going on this weekend in the racing world, so not much to talk about there, just a joke, obviously. Super excited. We got Jeff Hammond joining us very soon on the show. We're going to talk racing, we're going to talk Martinsville, we're going to talk a little bit of real estate, and let's get started. The show begins now.
Welcome once again, everybody, to Racing to Real Estate. I'm John Roberts. He is Josh Tucker. And I think you know this guy. He is Jeff Hammond, also known as Hollywood. And we're glad you're with us today. So we got a lot to talk about in racing, a lot to talk about in real estate, because there's great stuff going on. But first, Josh, a little bit of housekeeping. We're here in our Ducksworths Studio at the home of Anchor Real Estate in Mooresville, North Carolina. But Josh is going to tell you how you get involved with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Duckworths, for being a part of the show. We are located in the offices of Anchor Real Estate, as John just said. We encourage you to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, we are on YouTube, and follow along. You can message us questions on any of those platforms. You can email us at racing2realestate@gmail.com, and on Twitter, use hashtag R2RE if you want to ask us questions there. So, John, that's the housekeeping part of it. Let's jump into some real estate. We got Jeff here, who we do some real estate business with, and also, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about NASCAR with Jeff. But let's jump in.
Jeff's a good Anchor Real Estate client. We've been marketing a property for him over on West Sugar Creek Road that has some definite development potential. We've had a lot of interest in this property, 4420 West Sugar Creek Road. As of right now, it's zoned R3. But Jeff, it also is kind of special to you because it's been in the family for a long time.
Yeah, this is part of my family's estate. My mother unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, but my brother and I are now living away from Charlotte, and we decided that we wanted to put this stuff up for sale because, again, it's just so difficult for us with our busy schedules to really keep up with that stuff in that area. And we realize that we don't have an interest in developing it, but we feel like that somebody who is in that business could help, grow Charlotte a little bit more. It'd be a great opportunity. We did a lot of development work there with my grandfather's construction company in the early, as you might say, early 60s, and believe it or not, the piece of or the road right beside adjacent to the property is named Lindley Circle, which is named after myself and my first cousin, which we were both about 3 months apart. So it's got a little bit of a family touch to it. That's cool. But we'd love to get an opportunity to have you folks show it to someone who's interested. And I think really that, John, in checking around, I think that somebody could possibly even get that rating changed and, go to an R4, who knows, maybe even to a multifamily development. So I think it's got a lot of potential. And so all you got to do is just call Anchor and talk to John or anybody here in the office. Tracy, the good-looking boss over there, she'll be glad to talk to you.
Really want to talk to.
But they'll do you a good job. So if you're looking either to list a property or to buy a property, I suggest you check you guys out.
Yeah, you know what, Josh? We hear a lot in real estate that when you're looking to develop a certain parcel of land, you look at turns. This property is actually 2 turns away from Route 77 and 1 turn away from I-85. Right. You make 1 turn off 85 and you're there. You make 1 turn off 77, 1 turn on West Sugar Creek, so it's really convenient.
Yeah, and that is really important. And another important factor is the proximity, not just to those interstates, but to other businesses, right? I think especially when you're talking about multifamily or residential housing. In that property, we've been by it, we visited it. There is close proximity location-wise to grocery stores, to restaurants, to shops.
You're really not that far from downtown either.
Right.
I mean, that's the good thing about West Sugar Creek Road, Harris Boulevard. As you guys talk about it, there is a lot of things going on there continually, as far as the big banking centers as well as what IBM. And I mean, there's you just kind of pick it.
Yeah,
you pick it
right there.
Yeah, a lot happening there. So it's a location. So I think it'd be really great. And again, the ease of access to 85 and 77 has also got to be a really
and that's always important to developers, or people that are going to come in and sink a lot of money into a property to develop it, whether it's multifamily, like we had suggested earlier, whether it's a single family home builder. They want to produce a product that is close to those major thoroughfares because that's important to buyers, or people that are going to occupy.
Yeah, and our little beloved business of real estate here, we have a lot of myths. It seems like there's always myths in real estate. Jeff said a truth just a second ago, location, 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 but we always try to dispel the myths about real estate. And one of them is that Yes, spring and summer are generally considered a better time to buy because people are a little bit more apt to move. The weather's warmer, kids are out of school, but it doesn't shut down in the fall. Just because the leaves are falling down doesn't mean the business stops. One advantage of marketing your home during this time of year is that you're not going to get what my wife refers to as the looky-loos. People that are just out there looking around and just haphazardly looking, maybe I'll move, maybe I won't. You find serious buyers at this time of year. It's still a good time to market because people move, whether it's the holidays or not. People are still moving, still relocating.
Can I throw one thing out there?
Please
Everybody
do.
says, you know me from racing, but I actually grew up in the construction business. And one thing that I did learn and working in the family business for a short period of time, and my brother says the same thing. He's a home inspector, so he still is involved in construction, you might say, in a different manner. But the one thing I've learned is that, it takes time sometimes when you're making a decision like this to get all the paperwork lined up. So if you get it done during the winter, by the time the spring does roll around, everything's in place, and now you can take advantage of the spring, the weather, warmer weather, whether you're constructing or whether you're buying. I mean, you got to think about that. And a lot of times you don't go into a deal that you get it done in 30 minutes. You go into a situation that takes days and sometimes months to get all the finances and everything done, the inspections done, to get everybody satisfied. So now might be a really great time of the year because things are kind of slowing down. You're not on vacation. You got a little bit more time to do these things. So don't lose that opportunity because it does take time to make deals.
Yeah, we're still working.
Yeah, and it seems like from a timing perspective, this is a super busy time of year historically for the type of person typically looking for a property like Jeff's, right? This is a developer, and they understand that process can take 4, 6, sometimes 8 months to get through by the time they engage the local county and the city planning offices and architects to design plans and all those things take a lot of time. So typically they're busy in the fall trying to identify their properties, move that process forward so that when the weather breaks in the spring, they're ready to go. Now, what you had mentioned earlier, with Tracy referring to them as looky-loos and NASCAR, we sometimes refer to people like that as tire kickers. So that's another word. And you do get a lot of that in the spring. A lot of people are sick of being kind of cooped up from the winter, sitting in their house all winter long. So they want to get out. What better, fun way to do that than get out and look at some properties. So in the spring, you do get some tire kickers or looky-loos, and definitely not when somebody looking for a single-family residence. Definitely you don't get as much of that in the fall. I think we mentioned last week in the show, we are experiencing a little bit of a slowdown. I think that's seasonality slowdown and cyclical slowdown. You got what we have to remember: the real estate market has been on fire for 6 or 7 years. We've had up market, so historically cyclical, that has to slow down at some point. We can't grow for 20 years straight. So I think that you're seeing that slow down as a result, a little bit of cyclical, economic factors, and then also just seasonality.
Yeah, and it helps the buyers too. There was a time this summer when we had such a lack of inventory that the buyers were looking at a place, and sometimes before they could make their decision, the place was gone because there was such a lack of inventory. And then that cranks the price up. So now it's just leveling out a little bit. Now, Josh, we know we like business here. We talk a lot of business, but we also like to have a lot of fun too. And there's nothing quite as fun as what we saw in Martinsville. Let's take a quick break. Mention our sponsor, Duckworths. We're going to tell you what they're all about, and we'll be back with the racing part of Racing to Real Estate in just a moment. Duckworths Grill and Tap House is your neighborhood restaurant. Good food, good friends, a huge selection of craft beers on tap, not to mention the weekly and daily food specials. 5 locations in the Charlotte metro area. Make sure to go down and check out your local Duckworths.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Racing to Real Estate. Thank you again to Duckworths. John, Jeff, you guys frequent Duckworths?
Absolutely.
I do, believe it or not. I mean, your son has waited on me several times down there. So it's a great place to go. I mean, if you want to, especially if there's any kind of sporting event on, everybody always talks about, you got to go to another restaurant or this restaurant. They got TVs there. You get an opportunity to keep up what's going on with sports. But the overall atmosphere, what I like about it is, it's not just so overdone with televisions that you feel like you're in a sports bar, but it gives you like a nice balance between a sports bar and a family restaurant, and the menu is endless. So if you've got a favorite dish and you want to give Duckworths a try, I think you'll be surprised that they've probably got something that will suit your palate.
I'm in the beer club.
The beer club.
I'm a card-carrying member of the beer club.
I just thought you were a wino.
Both.
John,
Winer.
Yeah, John's. Yeah. If it has alcohol in it, John's a fan of it.
Sure.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
I notice you were real careful how you phrase that. Are you afraid he's going to come back on you?
Hey, we got to tell people some things you can't see on the TV camera. You should have just seen the look my wife just gave us. That was priceless. That was just fantastic.
Well, I know he
She's
loves his wine.
Yeah.
He says he's a wino, and he is. He loves his wine. I know that. But I've also been with you a lot of times when you're trying a lot of different beers.
You ever had a can of beer?
Duckworths is definitely a great place to do that. So didn't want to imply, John, that you are an alcoholic by any means.
Yeah.
But, nothing
Just
wrong
a fan.
with a drink every now and then.
He's not an alcoholic, but when I'm around him, he drives me to drink.
Hey, look what working with Hammond for 20 years has done for me. Interesting little thing before we get into the actual racing thing. I was Jeff, would it have been maybe 96, 97, long time ago. I was doing a little thing for our local TV station called Crew Chief's Corner. And I had seen Jeff a couple times at the racetrack and run into him, and he was crew chiefing for Chad Little was your driver.
Yep.
97 car. Mm-hmm. We're going to Watkins Glen, and there may have been a chance that there was going to be a rain there, and we're going to run in the rain. So Jeff did a little segment with me that we aired on the local CBS station called Crew Chief's Corner, and he told me about the rain tire, told me all about the windshield wiper, and little did we know we would be working hand in hand for 18 years now.
If I'd have known that, I'd have changed my profession. It was a good time. Like I said, and it's funny you bring that up. When you started talking about it, all of a sudden a little light went on, and I said, I remember that.
Yeah.
We talked about how the rain tires were unique and under NASCAR. It's really the first time we were going to go out and run on them if the rain was there. And we actually put the tires on Chad's car that day and went out and was one of the very few teams that got at least a little bit of experience of what it was going to be like. And don't forget, they had windshield wipers as well as a brake light.
Yeah, brake light. Yeah,
a brake light we had to add on to the back of the cars.
What about a defroster?
Well, we tried to do that with a way of blowing hot air up through the cut out place in the dash.
Yep.
Didn't work real well. We weren't really into this. This was something that was new unto NASCAR, so we didn't have a lot of experience. Today, the guys have been able to go to the regular road racers that run in the rain all the time, and they took a lot of ideas away from them, and now they've got them implemented into their basically road race package. So whenever you see a car show up today, whether it's at Watkins Glen or even Sonoma, no matter where they run, trucks or Xfinity, they will have this basically road race package, which includes windshield wipers, defrosters, and a brake light.
Yeah. One thing we should be experts in is blowing hot air. I don't know why we had trouble.
You had to go there.
I already called John an alcoholic on the show, and
He's
Jeff
blowing hot air.
backed it up. So
This is a banner day in vlogging.
It's Monday, and we're just getting wound up.
Yeah. Hey, but everybody was wound up after Martinsville, man. That was exciting. Unfortunately, we had to leave the TV and we're in the car, but I heard it on the radio, and the radio call was fantastic for Joey Logano and Martin Truex battling neck and neck there towards the end. And I guess it depends on your perspective. But Jeff, what did you see? Dirty move, good move?
Again, it's your perspective. I mean, I've been in racing for better than 35 years, and I've been on both ends of this deal. I mean, I can remember distinctly at Martinsville one time when Darrell was driving for Rick Hendrick, and we had the Tide machine, and we just basically in the first year hadn't won a race, and Darrell went down there on the final lap and gave Terry Labonte a little bump in the back end, who gave Dale Earnhardt a little bump in the back end. Those two went up the racetrack. Darrell passed them. We won the race. We were not what you consider, I guess you must say, fan-friendly with the Earnhart fans at that time.
Yeah.
They didn't really like anybody wearing a Tide uniform at that time.
Yeah.
But I've also been on the receiving end where in Richmond, like 1984, somewhere along that line, Dale Earnhardt hooked us and turned us into the outside wall and crashed us after we passed him for the lead.
Yeah.
And it was a very clean pass, a lot like what Martin did to Joey. So I think it's really his perception on which end of the deal is. You're on receiving or giving, and you're going to have to kind of like most of the time. And I use this term very loosely because racers understand what I'm saying, fans won't. But there's a code of ethics, how you want to race somebody. And I think Martin did race Joey extremely clean. Those last laps, it was great racing, side-by-side rubbing, just like you want to see.
Yeah.
And what Joey did is not totally unusual. He didn't wreck him. Make sure you understand when I say it. He didn't wreck him.
Yeah, Martin finished third.
He finished third because he was sideways, and Denny snuck by for second.
Right.
But the end result was, all combatants finished. There was nobody that was knocked out of the race because of what Martin called a cheap shot. It was hard-nosed racing, short track style. So you're going to have to kind of like make your own judgment call.
Yeah.
And herein lies the problem as we move forward, and we've seen this in our sport. Remember a few years ago, Joey Logano received a payback from Matt Kenseth at the same racetrack because he felt like he had done him wrong and had taken him out of the playoffs, a couple races earlier. And Matt said, okay, fine. Joey or Brad had created a crash which wrecked Matt earlier that day.
Yep.
And he was finally saying, okay, enough's enough, Team Penske. I'm not going to play this game no more.
Yeah.
So now the stage is set. What's going to happen next? Remember, Chase Elliott also returned a favor to Denny Hamlin at Phoenix 2 races later. So this is what's going to make this sport really, I think, people taking a focus on the next few weeks is how it evolves. If Martin Truex goes to Texas, wins the race, gets into the playoffs, now we've set the scene for this could come down to Homestead. And how they race each other there.
Yeah.
Now, Joey has already shown, I'll do this.
Yeah, he set the
he set the bar.
Yeah,
he set the bar. This is how you're going to race me. So if it comes down to the last lap at a place like Homestead, and Joey's looking like he's going to win, and Martin can get to him, or he may be going to lap Martin or something, we'll all be on the edge of our seats to see whether or not he retaliates.
Yeah. So if you're sitting there faulting Joey right now, though, what you got to remember,
no fault.
But I'm saying if you are, we're not. No. But if you're sitting back there faulting Joey right now, let me tell you what's on the line here. People lose sometimes. It is so difficult to win a race at NASCAR's top level. It's even more difficult to win the championship. And a championship is so coveted. And in order to have even a shot at the championship, you have to be in the championship 4.
That's right.
Now Joey's in there.
Yeah.
Now he can breathe easy. So there's so much on the line, Josh. It's millions and millions of dollars and tons of bragging rights.
Yeah, and it is. And it's funny that you mentioned that clip. I don't remember what year. You might remember better. I think it was that late 80s, that race that you were referencing earlier with Earnhardt and Labonte and Waltrip. I don't remember the year.
It was 88.
88, okay, yeah. So if you look back on our R2RE social media, on our stories on Instagram and on Facebook yesterday, we shared a video clip of that actual race.
87, excuse me.
Was it 87?
Yeah,
okay.
I just left Junior Johnson.
Two.
It came over, and the reason why it come over that they really weren't running like they wanted to. First year of the Dream Team in the 17 car.
Yep.
And we were at Martinsville, and like I say, we made some last minute adjustments on the car, and he was able to keep up with Terry and Dale, who were really the class of the field.
Right.
And they were all nose to tail going into that last corner, turn 3, and Darrell just literally shoved Labonte up into Earnhardt, and in the process of him trying to stay off Earnhardt, both of them slid up, and Darrell went around.
So I remember that race well, and I wasn't necessarily following NASCAR back then. I think I was only 9 years old, but
that's okay. Everybody grows up.
Someday I will.
Yeah. So, but I remember that race. I don't remember that race, but I remember seeing it. I remember hearing about it. I remember the spectacle that it created. So I found a video clip of that race, and I put it on our stories of Racing to Real Estate's stories. And I asked the question on there, who thinks today's race will end up like this? And little did I know.
You set the stage.
Yeah, I set the stage. And I think we had about 16 people respond to that question, and only about 3 of them said, I think that it will. A majority of them said, no, it won't, because NASCAR races have not been exciting as they used to be back in the day. So, those few people that guessed correctly must have knew something, but it certainly ended up in a battle for sure.
Well, I was going to say, if you really look at a couple other parts of this element. Number one, we've all been saying, and in a lot of our interviews and in a lot of our forecasting what's going to happen as far as the playoff, that Joey had not won enough races, hadn't run well enough, wasn't going to make the cut.
Yep.
Okay, he was not on the quote unquote our war room that we like to put together of who's going to be there running for a championship. Martin Truex Jr. pretty much in the same way. We had felt like ever since the Roval incident that team had been on like a little of decline in performance, and they've been losing some personnel. Now they have said that the team, basically the road crew, is not going to change, and they're still putting forth 100% effort. And I don't think anybody can question Martin's, intensity or his intestinal fortitude when it comes to this deal falling apart and him still trying to make things happen. He could have won Charlotte and he could have won yesterday. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to get to, we can't predict. Even though we like to say we know how to figure things out, we're not good at sometimes making this decision. And I should know that. The one thing you should never do is underestimate a race team and a race car driver. In 1985, Darrell Waltrip was way behind Bill Elliott, who'd been winning all kinds of races. We had only won 2 or 3. We rallied back. We won the championship.
Yeah.
You don't quit. Teams don't quit. And I think we saw yesterday 2 great examples of 2 teams that have not quit. Now they're basically got a feud going on. One of them on the outside looking in, and the other one on the inside sticking his tongue out. Saying, yeah, I got there first. So it really has changed the dynamic, I think, as we move forward, because now Kyle Busch is in the catbird seat for points. Kevin Harvick is right in there behind him, but not 100% locked in, and Martin's right there also. So what's going to happen to these 3 guys that could point in pretty easy? Who's going to wind up doing it, there? Or will we have another new winner that's going to wind up changing the dynamic again after Texas? So we've got a lot of synergy, I think, as we go to these final 3 races.
Yeah. And I want to throw the BS flag out here just a little bit for a second. And Jeff, you know this better than we do because we're not involved in a team. But when people say, okay, well, my driver's moving on next year, my team's shutting down or whatever, that a guy's not going to do as fast a pit stop, I think these guys are involved in this sport like you were for so many years going over the wall. I don't think a guy's going to try any less hard, if that's good grammar, to change a tire just because he knows he's not going to be in that place next year. I mean, it's his reputation. It's his future. It's the Jack man that's, he's not going to slow down just because these guys are still, they have pride, they want to win, and I don't think they're going to put it in park just because something's happening next year.
And that's what you're saying. You use the word pride, and I think, like anything else, when somebody tells you can't do something, that you are laying down on the job, it insults your integrity.
Yeah.
And people who are very competitive, which most pit crew members and most shop members,
you wouldn't be in it.
You wouldn't be in it. I mean, that's what drives you. That's what feeds that emotion. And when it comes to a race car driver, I think if you were watching any of the post race interviews, Martin Truex Jr. said it best. Everybody kept saying, "We can't, we won't."
All right.
Well, we're going to show you. And I think that's the attitude that all of the 78 team have.
Yeah.
Even Cole Pern. I mean, he mouthed off at Todd Gordon, crew chief for Joey Logano.
Yeah.
And it's all because they ain't gonna take it laying down.
Right.
You stole from me. That's the way they feel right now. And I've been in that position. I have felt like somebody picked my pocket. And if I can run you down, I'm gonna rip your head off.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole thing. Is it's a little bit like what Cole Pern said in his interview. It's a good thing I don't have a jack handle or baseball bat. and I've been there.
Yeah.
I had a jack handle in my hand one time at Bristol. So it's that emotion that is coming out, and so much, as you said earlier, there's so much at stake. I mean, these trophies behind us, they represent excellence.
Yeah, absolutely.
A championship trophy represents a year long of excellence.
So coveted. It's so difficult.
It is. And we had talked a little bit about with 78 team shutting down and how much does that affect their employees, their staff, the mechanics, the over the wall guys, and for my time spent in the sport, and granted the 78 team shutting down is a lot different than what the average mechanic or pit crew guy goes through.
Yeah, it's a bigger deal.
It's a bigger deal, but it's not uncommon in the sport of NASCAR for a mechanic or an over-the-wall guy to know 8-10 races before the end of the year that they don't have a job for next year or that they'll be moving teams. And I think that's what makes a true racer. A true...
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Been there.
Yeah, and a true racer, it doesn't matter. You're not... Maybe during the week you're thinking about that a little bit, but when you're at the racetrack, you're not thinking about what am I doing next week or what am I doing next year.
You're thinking about that next stop. You're thinking about your reputation.
I mean, I go back to 2008. We had a banner year with Carl in September. Bob Osborne, our crew chief of that team and at Roush Fenway Racing, came to all of us in September and said, we're blowing the team up. And Josh, you're going to go to the 26 car with Jamie McMurray, and we're bringing in a new car chief, and we're bringing in new over-the-wall people. And that was in September. And we were having an excellent year. We were making the playoffs. We had won 6 races prior to the playoffs starting. And, but we didn't go through them last 10 races that year hanging our head down or not doing our best. You still, as a racer, I think that's just your deal, right? You go to the racetrack to do your best, and because you want that trophy, that's your goal, right? So I don't think that, obviously the fact that the 78 team is closing down, has weighed heavy on a lot of those people. A lot of them maybe they don't have deals secured for next year. But one thing I think, once they get to the racetrack, they got one thing in mind and one thing only, and that's winning that race.
Yeah, and doing the best you can. A lot of people like to accentuate the negative, and it's just kind of our society these days. And last week on Racing to Real Estate, I had brought up good buddy of mine, guy I always talk to about racing over the lumberyard. So I go in the lumberyard, and I see my buddy. We're loading up the truck, and he goes, so we going to make it? And I go, what do you mean we going to make it? He said, you all right? And he said, yeah, we're going to make it. Is NASCAR going to survive? I said, dude, NASCAR going to survive? Wait a minute, what are you talking about? You're only focused on it. Of course it's going to survive. It's one of the 4 major sports out there. And we had a bit of good news come out this week that I don't think people are going to, because it's just kind of our nature. We're not going to focus on this positive thing. Probably one of the best bits of news we've had in a long time, because everybody was very concerned. You have a 7-time champion, Jimmy Johnson, and his sponsor, main sponsor, Lowe's, was going to leave the sport. So right then, everybody was writing the article, oh my gosh, go get your cardboard box and pick your bridge that you're going to live underneath, because we're all going to die because Jimmy Johnson doesn't have a full year sponsor because Lowe's leaving. Well, now I want everybody in the media to do the same level of news coverage in the fact that not only does he have an Ally Financial, which I don't know too much about yet, I'm going to find out about more, but it's a financial company. Ally Financial, Johnson, they're going to sponsor him for a full season, which is very unusual these days. Yeah. It's very difficult. And for 2 years. This is a huge positive that I'm challenging people out there to accentuate in the same way you accentuate the negative.
So what you're telling me, you're saying all those beat writers, all the television reporters,
yes,
if you're going to give 5 minutes to the potential feud of the 78 and the 22, give the same amount to the 48 and Hendrick Motorsports for doing what they've done.
Well, and I also want to go back and see how much time we spent when the announcement came from Lowe's that they were leaving the sport, not completely, but leaving the sponsorship of Jimmy Johnson. I want to find out how much time was given to that when people were like Eeyore on the cartoon saying, woes you woe, right. Get your cardboard box, pick your bridge that we're all going to live under. I want the same amount of time to say, hey, look, Ally's not stupid. Rick Hendrick's not stupid. Jimmy Johnson's a talented driver. Yep. He's not stupid. These guys are all in. They're fully in on this deal.
Yep.
Well, you bring up some very interesting points because of the fact, yes, I was on the Race Hub show when we talked about, what does this mean? Does this mean this? Does this mean this? Is this because Jimmy's been kind of in a slump for almost 2 years and not really as strong as we used to seeing him? Hey, to me, racing is a little bit like the stock market. If you stay in it long enough, you're going to have your ups and your downs.
Absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
Any organization, I think the thing that's unique unto itself is that we're so used to seeing Hendrick at the top of the sport that when they do have like an off time, that we get really overly concerned about it.
Right.
But every one of these organizations, whether it's been Joe Gibbs, Richard Childress, Ganassi, they've all Roush Fenway, they've had their ups and downs, but they've had their glory moments also. So, you have to understand, racing is no different, really, than any other sport. Mm-hmm. I mean, colleges are the same way. You're a big Carolina fan, and some years, man, they're challenging for a Final Four. And other years, man, you just want to put your head on a bag and go somewhere else until they get a new class.
I remember the second year when Vanilla Ice was the coach over there, Doherty. Mm-hmm. We used to call him Vanilla Ice because he kind of looked a little bit like ice. But it was 8-20. North Carolina basketball team goes 8-20. Yep. I still wore my T-shirt though.
Yeah. One thing talking about the Jimmy Johnson sponsorship deal. One thing I like about that is it's new. It's a new sponsor, right? I think there's
new money.
I think that there is some affiliation way back in the day to GMAC. If I'm not mistaken, I think Ally might have
was there.
GMAC.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Back years ago.
Yeah, Brian Vickers had the GMAC card.
He did. So that was kind of associated with Hendrick in some degree. I don't know how much of the the executive or the management
Could be.
people are still there, or
Good point.
if there was some kind of
Very
in
good
there.
point.
But Ally itself, obviously, a new money to NASCAR,
Yeah.
which I think it's not. They didn't steal this from another team, or this isn't an existing sponsor jumping over because they now have a chance to be on the car of a 7-time champion. So I think that's important to know. The other thing I love about this, and I mentioned this a couple of shows ago, I think it was when we had Matt Tift on, that I think a big identity problem with NASCAR today is that these drivers, and it's not the drivers or the team owners' faults, but they have to have 6 or 7 different sponsors in today's world to really get through, to make the business model work. And I love the idea now that you're going to have Ally Financial on the 48 car with Jimmy Johnson for every race.
Yeah.
And you can build a brand off of that. And I think that's important. I think that helps engage more fans. They know what car to look for. They know what the paint colors are going to look like. They know the name on the car, what it's going to be every week.
It's huge. That's huge.
And I think that builds a lot of momentum, and it helps the younger fan break into the sport and really engage and be able to follow a driver.
Yeah, and pure speculation here. I just think that kind of tells us that Jimmy Johnson's going to be around at least for another 2 years, which I like. I don't know that for sure.
No, I didn't believe he was going to retire. I don't think Jimmy Johnson's got it in him to walk away not being a winner.
Oh yeah,
not
being competitive. Yeah,
I think that's something he is. Between now and the end of the year, just like we saw yesterday, they've battled really, really hard.
Yeah.
And they had a relatively respectable finish, not as good as they used to, but once again, he's not a quitter.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think that he anybody that's getting ready to be on that team for next year, they're going to be wanting to do one thing. And that is make sure they win and win for this new sponsor. But I also want to say that Chad Knaus and Jimmy do not want to end this season and end their relationship with Lowe's with a big goose egg in the win column.
Oh, would love to see them
there's still
get
some
one of these.
opportunities here.
Yeah.
And,
Which Texas, Phoenix, Homestead.
and he's won at all of them.
He's won at all of them.
He's won at all of them.
Well, gosh, I would have to say I think at Texas, Jimmy's probably the active winningest driver.
I believe you are correct on that.
Yeah, I want to
I'd have
say.
to
But he
say
was
so.
also the same way at Martinsville.
Very true.
So I'm just what I'm saying is they've got
Good
work to do, and it doesn't mean you don't race numbers. Remember that numbers are nothing but references for hosts and analysts to look at.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem is right now. We're racing this at the end of the year right now. We're racing against emotion and heart. Mm-hmm. I mean, who brings their A game? Who can get the job done? Who can work on their car and adjust it properly to get it better? I think, again, we saw a great example of that. Martin Truex Jr. started back, 33rd or worse, and marched his way to the front to be a contender right there at the end. On the other hand, Joey Logano, he was fast from the time they unloaded the car.
Yeah, led 309 of the 500 laps, started in the top 5, I think.
So legit victory there.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, he was the guy you had to beat.
Yeah,
and that was the whole thing is that in the end, his car got a little off. Martin's was still there. And Joe admitted, they were a little bit better than us.
Right.
So, he did what he had to do to bring home the win, which he knew he had to get.
Yeah.
I mean, he did, because I don't think when they go to, and it may be a momentum deal, it may change, but you know yourself, sometimes you just can't always go to a racetrack where you're expected to go run well and deliver.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just fall flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Hammond, I'm going to go to the big overall here, because especially when we have a guy like Jeff around with us here on our show, it's nice to get some.
What does that mean?
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
When you have a crappy race car, you take a big swing at it, right? Mm-hmm. And I never like to say that we ever have a problem. I don't think you ever have a problem. I think you have questions that need to be answered. So when you take a big swing at the car, you have questions that need to be answered, right? What am I going to do to make this better? So when you look at NASCAR and some of the things, I don't see any problems. I think the on-track competition is great. I think there's still great competitors in the sport. The problem is the question that needs to be answered is, how do we get the people, how do we get the eyes back on the TV sets? How do we get the butts back in the stands? And I have a few concepts of my own, but I thought it was kind of interesting the other day that new CEO Steve Phelps said, I do not know what the schedule is going to look at. So we want to make you president of NASCAR, because I make myself president of NASCAR every week and have these ideas. If you're going to take a big swing at it, what do you do?
I think, number one, you've got to simplify the sport. You've got to simplify the schedule, and you've got to shorten the schedule. So it's there in itself is going to be a challenge because a lot of fans complain about, I don't understand the rules. I don't understand why they did this. I don't understand why they did that. So you got to look at what their confusion is, number one, so you can get their interest back. By simplifying the schedule and shortening the schedule, add some races in the middle of the week. I mean, everybody right now, you take a look at Major League Baseball, basketball, even football. What do? They got games on
Thursday
Sunday.
night,
They got one on Sunday night. They got one on Monday. Got one on Thursday. They're taking them where? England, Mexico.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're not just staying here
Right.
in the continental United States. So you've got to be willing to make big changes and big swings if you're trying to basically encompass the world to take a look at your sport. And that's what the NFL's doing. I think NASCAR needs to do the same thing. Let's take a place like Martinsville. Be great to have a Wednesday night or a Thursday. I'll go back like Thursday Night Thunder. Run on Thursday night there, and maybe slide up to Richmond. Come Sunday, we'll roll in there and we'll run at Richmond on Sunday.
You could do it.
You know, you could do it. You just got to look at the proximity logistically. Can you go back to shop on Thursday night, unload and load everything on Friday, and be ready to roll into Richmond on Saturday afternoon and maybe qualify and everything and race on Sunday?
Yeah, because again, Jeff just answered a question. There was a question: how are we going to do this? How are we going to shorten the schedule? Because we were talking to Brian France about it on race day 2 years ago. There was a question: how are we going to shorten the schedule without taking a race away from somebody? He looked at me and he said, are you going to go to that track promoter in, say, Martinsville or, say, Loudon? Are you going to go there and look at him and say, hey, you don't have a race anymore?
You can't do that to me. I've watched it happen to North Wilkesboro, Rockingham. These communities were devastated because they were so heavily supported by the local community. And the economy right there takes a big hit, and that's not something that's fair. We got to figure out how to make our sport work for wherever they are. I don't care if it's Chicago or if it's in Texas or if it winds up being in California. You got to look what you can do to continue to help support that community that's supporting you.
Yep.
And if it makes sense, do it. Now, if the community is basically giving up on the track and giving up on NASCAR, there's nothing you can do about that. And if that's a genuine field, and they can document it with some numbers, then maybe it's time to take that date and let's go somewhere where you're wanted. I mean, let's go. I promise you right now, if you called the mayor up at Wilkesboro and said, "Hey, would you like to have a race back up at North Wilkesboro?"
Yeah.
I mean, they would come through the phone and hug you and kiss you because they would love to have racing back at Rockingham the same way. Yeah. We need more short tracks like that.
So I think the schedule, and the same thing I said last week on the show, the schedule, is something that I think we need to take a long, hard look at. I think we need to shorten it. I think we need to condense it some. The other big thing that I didn't talk about last week or mention, but you mentioned it earlier, is about rivalries. And if you look back in the sport over the years, there's been a lot of rivalries. I think we don't have many rivalries today, but obviously we got Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski have publicly made it known they don't care for each other. But yesterday's finish at Martinsville, does that start a rivalry that could go on for
let's hope
some time and maybe increase that engagement or get some fans?
Well, I will bring you back, and I think you probably can find it on YouTube. But I know we did on NASCAR Race Hub.
Yeah.
I did a survey about rivalries and who were good ones, what were pretension ones, it's like Kyle Busch. It was Kyle Busch versus the garage.
Yeah.
Because Kyle has had run-ins with a lot of people because he's an aggressive racer. But I'm not picking on Kyle because I think if you put Dale Earnhardt in that list right now, he would be one of the guys that would be on that list of against the garage because he didn't take any prisoners either.
Got to stop you right there. We got to take a quick break here from our sponsor, Anchor Real Estate. We will come back. We'll wrap up this NASCAR talk, and we will go clear to close. Anchor Real Estate is your boutique real estate firm located in Mooresville, North Carolina. We specialize in the Lake Norman area. Whether you are buying or selling, our innovation through communication will get you results. That's Anchor Real Estate in Mooresville, North Carolina. Make sure you follow us on social media.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Racing 2 Real Estate. We got Jeff Hollywood Hammond with us today. Man, we've had fun so far today. It's been a really good time. And Josh Tucker with us as well. And right now, before we get clear to close, we are going to take some fan questions, which we always love to hear from you, the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, feel free to chime in on any of these answers. You know the area well, too. So we got a couple of questions, not necessarily involved directly around racing.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
This is a real estate business, right?
This is real estate and racing, and we always say anything you want to talk about. So we've had Megan from right here in Mooresville, North Carolina, reached out and said, I just moved here from upstate New York. Are there any good New York-style pizza restaurants nearby?
Brooklyn Brothers.
There you go. Brooklyn
That's one.
Brothers. Yep.
Brooklyn South. Boy, there's good pizza around this area.
There's a lot of good pizza around here. Duckworths has pizza. I don't know that it's necessarily New York style, but
It's unique.
But the pizza is good.
It's very unique.
Obviously, they're one of our sponsors, so we would
Yeah,
love,
can't go
Megan,
wrong
for you
there.
to stop in there and have a pizza. Brooklyn South, obviously, is another good one.
Yeah,
There's a
good.
new one, Alino's, that opened up in downtown Mooresville that's very, very popular right now, getting a bunch of great reviews, so that might be a good one to check out as well. So, Megan, try out a few of those choices. Let us know what you think.
And bring us by a piece, okay?
Yeah, please bring us by a piece.
It's a slice, John. It's a
slice.
slice.
Yeah,
That's
a slice.
A slice.
Yeah, New York especially. It's a slice
Yes.
pizza. They do
Sorry
the thin pizza up there in New York. I'm more of a Chicago style personally. I like the deep dish pizza, but
She
anyway,
didn't ask about Chicago.
she didn't. I know. Stay right on track.
Stick with the script.
Stick with it. Okay. Matthew from Columbus, Ohio asks, "We are coming to the All-Star race in 2019. It will be my first time to North Carolina. Do most of the race shops have viewing areas for fans, and which ones should I make sure to visit?"
Oh, yes, and yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
First of all, you're making a great call coming to an all-star race. It's a great shorter race at night. It's exciting.
Yeah.
That's your first race you need to go to, and you know what? You're going to come back after that. But shops, Jeff, open arms. Hendrick.
Hendrick Motorsports, Penske Racing also, as well as Ganassi's got a little bit of one out front.
Yeah,
And
Gibbs.
Rouse Fenway, as
Yeah.
well as Gibbs. So, I mean, like all the major ones,
Yeah,
and
they
if
love
you're
to have
coming
you by.
down through from up north for some reason, if you're coming down through like the Winston-Salem area, slip over to Welcome, check out Richard Childress Museum over there. You'll be totally blown away. It is his original race shop where Dale Earnhardt's cars were built out of. And they've expanded out of that, so they turned it into a museum, so you can see the exact area where Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s cars were prepared for many, many years, as well as Richard has taken a lot of his exploits as a hunter,
Yep.
an outdoorsman, and he is sharing those with the general public. So, I mean, it is a very unique, and you need to go by and check it out. And you might run into
cool.
a guy named Chocolate Myers, too. And he's very unique, too.
Yeah. And what about the DEI museum over off of Highway 3? Is that still
It
open
is,
to
but
the
you might
public,
need
right?
to call and check and make sure
Check on their hours.
on their hours.
They might
Their
only open
hours.
select days.
Yes.
Another good place to check out, not necessarily a shop, but great place to go while you're in town would be the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame's
You got to
fantastic.
do that.
Yeah.
place
I mean,
is
that should
cool.
be number one on your list. I mean,
Yeah.
the race teams are great, but the history of our sport
Yeah, very-
is right there in downtown Charlotte.
Yeah, very underrated experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much for the questions. We appreciate it. Make sure you reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can message us on any of those channels. You can email your questions to us at racing2realestate@gmail.com, or you can hashtag R2RE questions on Twitter. We will make sure to answer them on the show. Racing, real estate, or anything else, we are happy to talk. John, let's go to clear your close.
Just wanted to say one thing to close out the show today. You know, there's a lot of negativity in our world right now, and most of it is out of our control. But what is within our control for each person is how we treat people around us. So if you make it a point every day to be kind to somebody else, to do something kind, you make it a pretty good day, and that's within our control.
Do unto others as you'd like to have them to do unto you. Never forget that. I think that's the golden
That's
rule.
the golden rule.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Those are good words to live by for sure. Quickly for me, clear to close. November 3rd, I mentioned last week, is the Rust to Riches Cruise In, honoring the life of Jeff Arnold, a good friend of mine, also a good friend of many in the Lake Norman area. Jeff lost his life early. They're having a Rust to Riches Cruise In the Lakeside Business Park to honor him. That'll be a great event if you're a car person, if you like to check out some old classic cars, restorations, anything like that. Make sure you stop by. It will be very fun. November 7th is the Lake Norman Humane People Helping Pets Auction event.
Yeah, we have tickets.
Yeah, we have tickets. We've sold a lot of tickets. We're going to have a silent auction, a live auction. We're going to have music. We're going to have food and drinks. Should be a really fun evening. That's at the Langtree Plantation here in Mooresville, starting at 6 o'clock on Wednesday evening, November 7th. And final for me, guys, Halloween's this Wednesday. Jeff, I hope you guys got your costumes. I'm sure you guys are going trick-or-treating. So everybody be safe out there for Halloween. Jeff Hammond, thanks for joining us on the show, man. We definitely
Thanks, Mr.
appreciate it.
Hambone.
You got it.
And that's it. This is episode 8, Racing to Real Estate, folks. It's a wrap.